I'm Linda Gray, and I'm a caregiver. Caring for a loved one is hard, but finding resources and support shouldn't be. I'm honored to introduce you to Caregiving 101, an invaluable resource for you, the caregiver. Join today at caregiving101.com to receive your Caregiving Essentials package, caregiving books, and members-only information. Caregiving 101 will change your life and the life of your loved one. Join today.
Hi everyone, and welcome to a caregiving discussion at the fabulous R.O.S. studios in beautiful Greensboro, North Carolina. We're live, and I'm Scott Silknutter. I'm here with Congressman Mark Walker, who's come in from Washington to join us today.
Yes. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you for coming to meet us.
It's our privilege to be with you today.
I appreciate it. For those of you who are not familiar with Caregiving 101, this all started as a backyard project in 2010 to help my mother and father in Dad's 25-year fight with Parkinson's and dementia. And that has turned into a mission to help as many families. There's about 45 million family caregivers out there, to help as many families as possible in improving their quality of life. None of us plan on being a family caregiver, but it happens, and we're thrown into it. And that's what our company has turned into: training classes and books, and now programs like this. And this is our first caregiving discussion. With things being thrown in and life being unexpected, that leads us to the Congressman, who, you're in your second term, but you didn't start off as that. You actually started off as a pastor at a church.
Yes, I actually came out of college and worked about 5 or 6 years in the business industry, and then for the last 18 years following that, went back to school and served as a pastor in 2 churches here in the local area of the Triad.
That's fantastic. Now, is that background, is that what drove, and that desire to help people, is that what drove you to run for Congress?
It really is the foundation of really what drove us there, really what made that decision. I remember just thinking through it and processing it, and coming home one day and telling my wife of 24 years, hey, I think I'm going to run for Congress. Now, I won't give you verbatim what her response was, and she, being a family nurse practitioner at Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center, being married into the healthcare industry, plus from a pastor standpoint, so many visits, so many families, specifically those elderly, and those choices and life decisions, not only those folks were making, but the very people that were responsible for their care were having to make as well.
Yeah, that story with telling your wife, when we started R.O.S. and Caregiving 101, right. I was in the air pollution control business, and after seeing my father in a life-changing moment, I looked at my wife and said, this is something we need to do, and I think she kind of had the same reaction that your wife did, but here we are, and we're helping people. Now, and with that helping others, has that background helped you in your approach to being a congressman?
I think it has, and here's why, Scott. As a minister, pastor, specifically of a larger sized church, you deal with people from all backgrounds and walks of life, socioeconomic, different health needs, and really you kind of lose a sense of what's Republican or Democrat, because a lot of times what a minister does is meet the needs of the people where they are. And a lot of times those are health care situations, those are people that are looking to provide, those are building organizations around our senior adult population, and as you know, the demographics, specifically for many churches, a lot of your senior adults still are engaged very much in that arena, so it allows you to really prepare for what's next, transitioning into the U.S. congressional role, and understanding that ultimately my job is to represent everyone in our district, not just people who always agree with me.
You know what? I don't remember seeing an R or a D next to the name caregiver.
Right.
It affects all of us.
Great point.
It's Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, stroke. It happens to everyone and anyone at any time.
It does, yes.
So as a pastor, while you were in your role, did you counsel families going through this as caregivers?
Oh, yeah, all the time. I remember specifically, even as we're talking, and certainly without revealing some of the names, being in a room as a parent would maybe potentially breathe its last breath, and then the spouse trying to figure out what to do next, children in the room kind of looking at you for answers, because a lot of times they're looking, whether it's in the medical community, whether it's certainly your wonderful organization, but what do we do next? How do we handle this? Because there's so many decisions that you're overnight faced with sometimes that you have never really sometimes even being prepared for. And to have organizations or people say, listen, we can walk you through these steps, we can provide this, is a huge resource.
Absolutely. It's like being a parent. You can't explain what it's like to be a parent until you are one.
Exactly.
You can't explain what it's like to be a parent or go through this until you've been through it.
Well said.
Did the church, did you put programs in place at a church level to help families going through all this?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the largest things that we do is build that sense of community, build that sense of network, whether they're weekly programming, even down to some of the exercising things that you can offer in some of the gymnasiums, but also making sure that people who weren't even able to come out to attend some of that would have a regular contact from the church to say, hey, we're coming by, we're checking on you. If we need to pick up some of the pharmaceuticals, do we need to go bring you some food? To have that network, but it doesn't happen by itself. It has to have a lot of intentionality. And these things, when you're trying to minister, to reach out to people, can't just push a button. It takes many people to be willing to engage and really volunteer and give back to the community in a very special way.
So if you fast forward now to where you are and knowing, as I said, you can't explain it until you've lived it, and knowing what you know now, how has that experience affected your approach to things like the healthcare discussion?
Sure, great question. What I've realized is that everything starts and succeeds on relationships. If you do not have built relationships, whether it's a progressive policy or it's a conservative policy, if you've not spent time investing in the community, if you've not spent time in building that relationships, a lot of times, Scott, you haven't earned the trust to be able to talk about these sensitive issues. So sometimes I try to remind my Washington friends on both sides of the aisle, it's the trust that comes first. Because when there is a trust, and I've seen this in ministry and in politics, what happens is the parameters augment a little bit. In other words, we've got a foundation, we've got a starting place to talk about sometimes even difficult issues. But I will tell you, until you're willing to spend time in the community, to invest time, to know people on a name basis, to understand what they're dealing with or what they're working through, a lot of times you've never even earned the right to introduce a piece of legislation or policy altogether.
Do you see different groups in the community pulling together, or do you see people fighting each other when they shouldn't be? Do you have the opportunity to, like you said, we tell the other congressman, hey, guys, we need to work together? Do you see that happening on a local level, like here in your district?
I will tell you, the true success of it starts on a local level. We've been able to do some few things. We've worked with Alma Adams on doing some paid internships for some of our historical black college and university students, some of the things along those lines. But Grassroots, if you want to see a program begin to work, it really starts at somebody with a vision and with a passion to say, you know what, we can do something right here in our own community that begins to make a difference. And we're seeing some of that. Sure, we're going to see some of the things that's driven partisan sometimes with the media, sometimes other things. And I don't want to make light. There are tough issues and tough decisions to make. But what we can do, what we can work on, is the ability and the opportunity to see how we can impact. I'll use the word minister. You guys provide a huge community service. Whichever your perspective is, to make sure that our senior adult population is being honored for how many times these folks have given back to our community.
And giving back. One of the things we've done for our company, we started advertisements with TV commercials and social media ads. And one of the things we found on the television commercials, about 95% of the phone calls we got were from people who were looking for free items. And the reason they were looking for free items is because they quit a job to take care of a loved one. Right. They reduced their hours to take care of a loved one. So their income dropped dramatically. Right. And they were desperate. They're desperate for anything they can get their hands on. Are there things being worked on, whether it's tax cuts or something to help keep money in people's pockets or help them out?
Absolutely. And it's one of the reasons that I believe this administration, when they were talking about even running for the office, Vice President Pence and President Trump, one of the things that they shied away from was doing anything that would impact from a Social Security standpoint. You hear sometimes some stories about, because a lot of times I know my father and mother. My dad has been a small-town Baptist pastor for many years. Mom stayed at home. That is basically their source of income, which is minuscule at best. So you want to make sure that we're not doing anything that would damage that senior adult population who are living on limited funds already. But there are continued other programs that are being instituted. Some of those are from the federal level, some from the state, and some from the local level to make sure that seniors are being taken care of. Listen, and I don't mind saying that I'm a big advocate on life, but it's hypocritical for me to talk about life at the beginning without being able to honor and find a way that we're taking care of those at the end as well.
It's people didn't choose to get sick,
exactly,
but it happened.
Yes.
And
yes.
If the roles were reversed, we talk about this with caregivers all the time. If the roles were reversed, our loved one who we're taking care of would be taking care of us as well.
There's no questions. Some of the greatest love stories that I've ever seen or witnessed or experienced is as we get older, a mom or a dad or a child that begins to commit the time and energy that takes care of a loved one. And sometimes, whether it's Alzheimer's or whether it's other diseases, that loved one is not even able to understand who's taking care of them. But the love and energy, that's where those folks need support. That's where they need help being able to, because the taxing on the time, the energy, and you mentioned the resources can be overwhelming at times.
Yeah, absolutely. Family caregivers, they feel so alone at times. They're chef, chauffeur, nurse, doctor. They're everything to that person, especially when they're there. And every website, every pamphlet, everything that you read on caregiving, someone will say you're not alone. And that is true, because there are millions of other caregivers just like you. But you're the one that's there at 2 a.m.
Exactly.
You're the one that's there when your loved one's having a bad night and you're trying to get them back to bed and calm them down. Are there programs out there that you know of, other than the typical senior center, that folks can rely on or even contact and go to?
The best programs that I have seen, and certainly there are some programs, I've even seen some through the YMCA and other places. If I could, I don't want to put a plug for a specific ministry, but the best place or the most efficient places sometimes is in your local church. There are some wonderful places and programs that not only provide food and meals, even shelter at times, but the consistency. I think that's what's needed sometimes for these caregivers. It's very easy to do kind of a one-time, hey, we're going to come by and do this, but to know that there's a long-term opportunity somewhere that you can find some encouragement, that you can find some rest, you went through this with your own father for many, many years. To be able to know that you have a specific time that somebody will relieve you, somebody will give you a break, somebody will provide some. To me, the most successful places that I've seen that is in our local churches, and not a specific denomination more than one other, because there's across the board I have seen some great care provided. Is there more that maybe the federal and state level local government can do in the future? I think there is, but as far as some immediate places is to find that sense of community that are willing to engage and help.
Okay. One of the things we talk about with we train caregivers with dementia is using reminiscing as a tool. And one of the sayings from World War II or even Korea was there are no atheists in a foxhole.
Right. Yes,
and I think there's a lot of caregivers that live on caffeine and faith. That is a common thing for most people. So, and really that's all we have today. And I really appreciate your coming by.
Well, it's our privilege, and let me just say personally, Scott, thank you for doing this. I've sensed your heart. This is not for fame or fortune, obviously, as you can probably attest to, but the fact that you're just bringing not just awareness, but you're putting the action steps to this is something to be commended. I want to personally thank you for all the work, as well as your team.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it. It's been a labor of love, and to see what my mother went through caring for my father, and I was a part-time help. There are millions of folks. I want to make sure that no one goes through what they went through. That's my goal. So, all right, folks, we'll be back in a couple of weeks with Bob Buckley from Fox. He's going to share his stories, his family story about caring for his mother with Parkinson's and the things that they went through. And until then, you truly are not alone. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.